It's time to take a look at the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. There's 5 new titles on the list this week compared to last week, and we've got a brand new number 1, so let's check them out coming right up. Hello everybody, Justus R. Stone here with another of your weekly countdowns of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. On this channel I cover all things light novels, not just countdowns like this, but also reviews, news, and the Light Novel podcast gets posted here as well. So if you like light novels or you're just starting to get interested in them, you should consider subscribing. Now, like I said in the intro, we've got 5 brand new titles on the list this week, and one of them has managed to unseat The Irregular at Magic High School from the number 1 spot. So let's take a look at the titles that we have on this week's list. At number 10, with 5,656 copies sold, volume number 9 of Ryuo no Oshigoto. Now, of course, this title's been on the list for the past couple of weeks. It had an anime, which we have in English. You can also buy the ebooks in English officially from Bookwalker for this series. It's a Bookwalker exclusive, so you can only buy them from Bookwalker, and they so far have released up to volume number 4 of this series. Again, the series about a teenage boy who obtains one of the highest shogi rankings in Japan, and then discovers a 9-year-old girl in his apartment who says that she's there because he promised to take her on as his apprentice. It has its moments, it has its sweet moments, and then I only read the first volume because it had some really creepy, let's make the 9-year-old girl into fan service moments, which, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of. However, again, and I have said this before because I like to be as transparent as possible and give every series as fair a shake as possible, I have heard from others, including Frog-kun, who was just as hard on the first volume as I was, that the series does get better. The series has some really great writing when it comes to the shogi battles, and that whole sort of creepy fan service aspect gets toned down a little bit, if not, well, it's not eliminated. Come on, it's not going to be eliminated. But anyway, so again, it's a really well-received series, actually. This one has topped out on Kono light novel Gasugoi for the past 2 years, so it's obviously got lots going for it. I just wasn't feeling it after the first volume. Maybe I should try the second volume sometime just to see if my opinion changes on that series. At number 9, with 5,944 copies sold, it's the Kadokawa Bunko version of Mirai no Mirai, the light novel adaptation of the film that opened in Japanese theaters towards the end of July. We are getting this in English from Yen On. They're going to be releasing it on October 30th. Now, they are releasing it as just Mirai. They're not doing Mirai no Mirai. They're not doing Mirai of the Future, which is another way that I've seen it translated into English. So they are doing it as just Mirai. That's what they're releasing it as is. Apparently it looks like it's going to be a one-shot hardcover release. I haven't checked to see whether they're releasing an ebook version of it as well. I guess I should do that. I will do that if next week this one is still on the list. It has remained on the list for a long time. And I mean, at certain points has actually had another version of it occupying one of the top 10 spots as well. So story seems to be very, very popular. Although initially the film, I know its financial returns seem to have been disappointing compared to expectations. So I guess we'll see soon. Supposedly we're getting the movie released for English audiences, I guess, around October 30th. I think a little bit after, because Yen On was saying that they were releasing the book in time for the English release of the film. So if you want to check this one out, which seems like a lot of people are saying you should based on how many people are still buying this and loving the book, well, you can do that pretty soon. At number 8, with 5,950 copies sold, volume number 4 of Date Alive Fragments, Date a Bullet. Of course, this is a spin-off of the Date Alive series. This is the story of Tokisaki Kurumi that shouldn't have ever been told. The amnesiac young girl empty who woke up in the neighboring world encounters Tokisaki Kurumi. Led by her, the place she arrived at was the school's classroom. In order to kill each other, the girls known as semi-spirits gathered. Now then, let's begin our battle. Date. You know what, there's not a lot of information about this. That little bit is just kind of off of the Date A Live wiki. So obviously we don't even have the main Date A Live series in English, let alone a spin-off series. And even the anime was really only based on the main series and only covered a couple of volumes of it. So yeah, I mean, this is one of those really popular ongoing series that we just have not had any word about whether there's any hope of this coming out in English, though I know quite a few of you regularly request it from 7 Seas, so who knows, maybe we'll see something in the next couple months. Fingers crossed for all you fans out there. At number 7, with 6,120 copies sold, volume number 8 of Sword Art Online Alternative, Gun Gale Online. Another spin-off of another popular series. This one, of course, not even written by the original author. This one being written by Keiichi Sigsawa, who is probably most notable for having written Kino's Journey. Sigsawa is a huge gun nut, so it's really not too shocking that he would choose to write a series based in the gun battle world of Gun Gale Online. The main character is a girl who has a major issue with the fact that she is quite tall. She actually mentions that not only for the girl in general, but particularly for a girl in Japan. And so she seeks to have a virtual existence as a cute little tiny chibi girl, and she manages to find it in a game where she has to shoot people. And really, I mean, the majority of the first book, which is all that's been released so far in English, volume number 2 is actually coming out this month. This one, it really just focuses on the battles. It really is Sigsawa using this series as a playground to show people with cool guns having cool gun battles. The first volume was pretty fun, though. I gotta admit, I did enjoy it, and I'm definitely going to want to pick up the following volumes to see how the series progresses. At number 6, with 6,363 copies sold, volume number 6 of Towaru Osan no VR MMO Katsudoki. Roughly translating into a certain middle-aged man's VR MMO activity log. This one has been on the list in previous months when it's released, but we do not have an official English release for it. 38-year-old Tanaka Daiichi's childhood dream of playing a VR MMO has finally come to life. As he creates his character, he decides to choose skills that are considered useless by others since he has no interest in playing like a main character. Follow the adventures of Daiichi as he strives to use his mismatched set of worthless skills to achieve his dream goal of simply being able to enjoy an alternate life in a virtual reality. So this one, of course, it is strictly just a guy playing a VR MMO, and it's about the adventures that he has in this game. And it's kind of interesting, because so the book makes the selling point that he's picking skills that are quote-unquote useless. And I was actually on my anime list, and I saw somebody had left a review for this series, and, you know, I'm always looking for whatever information I can on Japanese-only series. So I took a little look at it, and it sounds like one of the biggest problems with this series is that it's a little bit contrived in the fact that it says that certain skills are useless. Like, for instance, cooking. I mean, like this guy said, the reviewer that is, he said, if the VR MMO ever came out and you could actually taste the food that was made in that VR MMO, there is no way that the majority of players, if not every other player, would not have that skill. There would be tons of people that would look to have the skill of cooking. Same thing, I guess, archery, because it's so hard. He's like, dude, how many people grind for hours playing games on the hardest, most impossible settings just for the fun of it? He's like, there's no way that people would just be like, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to bother. Like, so it sounds like the idea is kind of, you know, fun. I mean, it's just a middle-aged dude having a fun in a game, but it sounds like there's a little bit of a mismatch in terms of what the author believes would be useless skills compared to anyone who's actually knows anything about gaming or gamers. There seems to be a bit of a disconnect there. So, but you know what? If any of you have read it or are familiar with the series, I'd love to hear your opinions, because as I said, this was just one review that I saw, and you know, I'm always curious to learn more about these titles, so if you're familiar with it, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. At number 5, with 7,144 copies sold, volume number 6 of Tenshi Tachi no Kagai Katsudo, or Angel's Extracurricular Activities. We do not have an English license for this series. It's been on the list for a couple of weeks, and as I have mentioned over those couple of weeks, it seems to be one of those series that has a bit of a larger gap between volumes, which could account for the fact of why this is staying on the list for several weeks now. And basically, all I could really find on it was that it's a story about 3 angels who decide to come to Earth and do extracurricular activities. So I'm guessing it's kind of a comedy. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some romance elements to it. The artwork on the covers looks very shoujo-esque. It's not to say that it definitely is, but that seems to be sort of the impression, and we all know that very much in Japan, artwork is really used as a marketing aspect, so yeah, so I don't know a lot about this series, and honestly, I've been asking you guys the past couple of weeks if you're familiar with it, and nobody's come forward and said anything, so I'm guessing this isn't a really big title amongst people who are English as a first language. But again, I will appeal to any of you if you know more about it. I'd love to know. I save all my notes, so I add stuff as people give me more information so that when the titles pop up again, I've got stuff to actually talk about. At number 4, with 8,678 copies sold, volume 14 of Hachinante Sore wa Nai Deisho. There's no English license for this series. Ichinomiya Shingo, a young 25-year-old single worker of a firm company, was thinking of tomorrow's busy work day and goes to sleep. However, the moment he wakes up, he is inside a room that he's not familiar with. He learned that he had taken over the mind of a 6-year-old child, and remembering a lot from the memories of that boy, he realizes that he is born as the youngest, 8th son and 10th child, of a poor noble family living in the backcountry. Having no administrative skill, he can't do anything to manage the vast land that his family has. Fortunately, he's blessed with the very rare talent of magic. But unfortunately, while it could bring prosperity to his family, in his situation it only leads to disaster. Yes, this is the story of the boy, Wendelin von Beno Baumeister, opening his own path in a harsh world. So again, this one, 14 volumes, and again, you know what, there's definitely information out there on it, but doesn't seem to be one that when you search for it, you get a ton of hits in the English light novel community. I'd be interested to know more about this series. Like I said, I'm always trying to learn more about the Japanese-only titles, especially ones that do continually show up in the top 10. This definitely is one of them. This is not the first time this title has been in the top 10. So if you know anything more about it, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I certainly appreciate them. At number 3, with 13,986 copies sold, volume 29 of Hidan no Aria, or as we have it in English, Aria the Scarlet Ammo. Now this one, there was an anime, and it's kind of a weird situation because this was licensed for English release by a company called Digital Manga Group. Now there's been a little bit of information about this group. It seems to have kind of gone defunct, or There's some really weird and twisted history, it seems, but in any case, they only put out the first 2 volumes, and that was it. We haven't gotten any more since then. And seeing as how the last volume released just in 2014, it's very likely that the rights for this are still tied up. I remember Sam was saying on on the J-Novel Club Curious Cat account that on average most license terms are 5 to 10 years. So even if this one was a shorter span of only 5 years, they still have it locked up for at least another year or so. So kind of a drag if you're a fan of this series. It has been going on a very long time. And every single time a new volume comes out, it's in the top 10. Tokyo Butte High School. It was a special school where armed detectives, also known as Butte, are being brought up. Toyama Kinji is a sophomore student who has the unique body which activates a super mode when it was stimulated by something. He tries to hide it to own others in order to live a peaceful life. But trouble came to find him when he became a victim of a bombing incident where he met the Butte High Assault Department elite, Aria H. Kanzaki. So I don't know a lot about this series. I have not read any of it. I have not seen the anime. I love how this description is super mode when it is stimulated by something. I think, honestly, it's like an event like life-threatening or violence. I'm not too sure, because, as I said, I'm not familiar with it. But, if you've got some more thoughts about this series, I'd love to hear them in the comments down below. Like I said, it's a very long-running series, and constantly, volumes always hit the top 10 of this one. Always. I've not seen a single volume miss hitting at least the top 10 for 1 week since I've been doing this for over a year now. So, popular series, and again, one that we kind of got in English, and then it just fizzled out and is probably going to be tied up in licensing hell for a while. At number 2, with 14,745 copies sold, volume number 26 of Mahoka Koko no Retose. So, of course, the irregular at Magic High School. I mean, I told you it was knocked out of number 1, but you had to know it was still going to be in the top 10. This thing, since its release, has sold over 124,000 copies. This is the series that just keeps on keeping on. Licensed by Yen on Volume 9 of their series, like the English release, will be coming out September 18th. Of course, there was a 26-episode anime, which covered volumes 1 to 7. You can stream it on Crunchyroll, although it did omit volume number 5. And this one, of course, is about the brother and sister who go into the magic high school, the academy, in order to learn magic. It's set in a world where magic has sort of become a science, a technology. It's not just sort of this arcane, mysterious type of power. Interesting series. I really liked the anime of it. I only read the first 2 volumes of the book series, and I know I've said it many times, but I think part of it was just because I couldn't get into it, A, because of the anime, and B, the writing in the... I don't know whether it changes, and you know what? Feel free to let me know if you've read more of this series. But particularly in the early volumes, there was a tendency of the pacing to get broken because the author would be in the middle of a really cool fight scene and then would stop, and it would become like a lecture about how the magic was working. And there were a lot of times where I thought to myself, you could have left this for afterwards, or, had somebody explain it later instead of ruining this really great paced fighting scene that you've got going on. But that was just my impression of it. I know that in my reviews, some of you agreed that you felt that way. I'm interested to know, does that kind of decrease? I mean, obviously, as later volumes go on, we know how magic works and stuff like that. So does the author kind of just get down to telling a really good story and it doesn't have quite the info dump exposition parts? Or is that just a consistent throughout the whole series? Finally, at number 1, with 18,984 copies sold, Volume 19 of Date Alive. So this one was actually on the list last week, but obviously had just released at the tail end of that week, so now that it's had a full week of sales, it has bumped Mahoka off of the #1 spot. This one, the tale about a boy who's, well, basically put into the position where he's got to make these girls fall in love with him, or else the girls are like natural disasters and will destroy the world. I mean, you know, it seems like a legit reason to try and make a girl like you to save the entire world. Although, you know, I guess, well, I don't know, comedy, romance, we don't have an English license for it. I mean, I mentioned all that when I was talking about the spin-off earlier in the list. No English license for this one for the light novels, despite much demand. And the anime, it only covered volumes 1 to 7, so 19 books. So yeah, lots and lots of story beyond what the anime covered. So I guess all I can say is 7 Seas keeps on asking. J-Novel Club, I guess, has in their forums, has like a place where you can make requests. If you want to see this one, go everywhere that anybody asks and tell them you want it, because it seems to have worked for other series, so unless there's some kind of big political thing or whatever that they can't get this one, it may happen. And this week, I want to say a special thanks to Shotaku, Kyle Block, Kiduang Ungayen, and Mitchell Van Regen for their support on Patreon, and for the support of all my patrons who continue to help this channel for me to buy books and to host the Light Novel podcast. And I really hope that you guys are enjoying all of the efforts that I'm trying to put in, and I'm trying to put the old noodle to use to come up with some other ideas to do for this channel that I can do surrounding light novels, and that, you know, I'll actually be able to do on a regular basis and have time for. I've got some great ideas, but they're kind of way beyond me at the moment. So in any case, again, thank you all for your support. I really appreciate it, and it's really made keeping this channel running so much easier. So those are your top 10 light novels in Japan for August the 20th to the 26th of 2018. I wouldn't say it was a thrilling list this week. I mean, the top titles were, well, somewhat predictable, and honestly, even the titles that were new this week are titles that we have seen numerous times on the top 10 before. Nothing new. I always like the weeks when there's some new #1. You know, on the one hand, I dread it because there's absolutely zero information on it, but on the other hand, it's just kind of cool to see what kind of new stuff is coming out in Japan and is proving to be popular. So hopefully, maybe we'll get some of that in the next couple of weeks, but, well, I guess we'll see. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should subscribe. I do this countdown every week, as well as reviews, news, and the Light Novel podcast gets posted here as well. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.